I love those plans. I got 9 grandchildren. I was videoing them the other day, 2 of the little ones, 7 and 5, and I said, what are your plans for the future? One of them said, I'm going to be an inventor. I want to work at the ice cream shop, and I want to work at Krispy Kreme. I said, that is great plans. You go for it. But y'all's plans were a little bit better than my grandchildren. David was being very nice, and what he's trying to tell you guys, that y'all got an undertaker to come speak to y'all. Y'all got that, right? Y'all understand that? So that means you need to sit on the edge of your seats and look alive, okay? Because I guarantee you I can tell the difference. And if you don't like what I got to say today, I really don't care. But if you don't like what I got to say, blame Jerry Smith. Jerry and I go back a long way. He's my great friend, and he worked with David and got me to come over here, and I'm glad to be here and see all of these people at George A. Smith Funeral Home. Thank you all for being here. Appreciate it. I know all these folks for sure. People ask me, and if you're probably sitting here probably questioning it, or maybe wondering a little bit, how in the world did an undertaker get run around the country being a humorist and motivational speaker? I answer that really in 2 ways. I'll tell you about one. I really do come from Reynolds, Georgia. Welcome to Reynolds and hurry back is on the same sign. All right, and I'm just going to tell you, being in the funeral business, there ain't a lot of people that lived in Reynolds, Georgia. There sure wasn't a lot of people that died there. I had to do something to make a living. You know, it's amazing how long people live when you're in my kind of business. Have y'all ever thought about that? I heard this story about this man that turned 60 years old. He went to the doctor to get his 60-year-old physical. The doctor checked him out, said, Jim, come in the office, I want to talk to you. Y'all know how it is when the doctor checks out, says he wants to talk to you, scared him to death. He put his clothes on, he went to the office, he waited about 30 minutes. The doctor finally came in and said, Jim, I got to tell you, I've been practicing medicine a long time. You're in great shape for somebody 60 years old. I said, Jim, what do you do? He said, man, I exercise. I jog every morning, swim laps in a swimming pool. I play golf 3 times a week. He said, doctor, I can look at you and tell you do something. I mean, you're in great shape. He said, Jim, let me ask you this. How old was your daddy when he died? He said, did I say my daddy was dead? I said, my goodness, Jim, I assume you were 60 years old. Your dad had probably passed. No, he's in great shape. He exercises every morning. Walks in the morning, walks in the afternoon, plays golf every single day of his life. Jim, Christian, just looking at you, I guess, and hearing about your dad, I guess long life just runs in your family. He said, Jim, let me ask you this. How old was your granddaddy when he died? He said, did I say my granddaddy was dead? I said, my gosh, he must be 106 years old. He said, Doc, he must be 100 years old. Doc said, you ain't going to believe this, but he's 106 years old. And he's fixing to get married. That doc said, why in the world would a 106-year-old man want to get married? He said, did I say he wanted to get married? People live a long time when you're in my kind of business. I can tell you that. Another reason I do what I do, I see the kind of decaying family unit in this country. Y'all notice that, right? I'm not throwing rocks at anybody. It's a little bit different than it was when I was growing up. But I know y'all heard the story when President Clinton, after he got out of office, he got on this commercial airplane. And he was sitting in the first class section and kind of incognito. And all of a sudden, of all the people in the world to come on that plane and sit next to President Clinton, but Reverend Jerry Falwell. And Lord have mercy, they were sitting side by side. Flight attendant came up, had a tray of mixed drinks, stood in front of President Clinton. Of course, he grabbed him a drink. She went over and stood in front of Reverend Falwell. Reverend Falwell sat up in that chair and said, ma'am, let me tell you one thing. I'd rather be savagely attacked by a wild woman than have alcohol touch these lips. President Clinton put the drink back. Ma'am, I didn't know I had a choice. I have what he's having. That's the kind of world we live in, right? So back in 1866, now David, you were close, but I'm actually a 4th generation, and my son is a 5th. So 1866, my great-grandfather moved from Macon, Georgia to Reynolds, Georgia to start a business. Now, he did that because he thought Reynolds was on the verge of becoming a booming city. Now, I want to tell you, there were 1,200 people that lived in Reynolds in 1866, and there's still 1,200 people who live there. But I found myself working in his family business when I was a kid. Their motto, it was a store building, their motto was, we sell everything from Evinrude Motors to Hook Cheese. Y'all know about Evinrude Motors, right? Daddy, when I was growing up, Daddy was the Browning gun dealer. Y'all know about Browning guns. He was a Wilson Sporting Goods dealer. He was the GE appliance dealer. He sold the first television ever sold in the county. He dug wells. He put the pumps in. He sold insurance. He gave you a little assurance if you thought you needed it. He was that kind of guy. You'd come in that building, and the first stop would be the produce counter. That's normal, right? Among everything else we sold groceries. The next stop was a frozen food counter. I'll never forget what happened there one time. I was a kid, and I didn't realize that the pictures I was seeing would help form me later on in life. Now, y'all got to know my daddy. Nancy and David knew my daddy well. Daddy carried on. He could not live in the world we live in. He hugged everybody, kissed them on the cheek, called everybody sugar, sweetie, and he got by with that. But we had a young Methodist preacher that had moved into town, and he had a cute wife, and he loved Daddy. They were always hugging each other, kissing each other on the cheek, saying sugar or sweetie. They were good friends. But this lady was bent over the frozen food counter one day trying to pick out a frozen food, and Daddy walked by in his normal kind of fashion and kind of patted her on the backside when he walked by. I said, "How you doing, sweetie?" Well, that lady almost turned the counter over. She jumped up, turned around. It was a complete stranger. Daddy said, "Lord, have mercy, lady. Excuse me, I thought you were the preacher's wife." That lady got out of there, I can tell you that. She was in there to buy some ice cream. That woman left. She didn't buy nothing. If you go back, the next stop was the meat market. Now, some of you won't have a clue what I'm talking about, but this is one of those meat markets where you ordered what you want. If you want some hamburger meat, take that meat in that pan and that meat in that pan and grind it together. If you want a pork chop, bring me the loin out here, and let me see where on that loin you're going to cut that pork chop. And I may want you to go back and get another loin. Some of y'all know about that, right? Well, I'm standing at front of a meat market one day, and I'm a kid. And I didn't realize that the pictures I was seeing would help form me later in life, but a lady was ordering her roast. And the butcher was about to go back in the back to cut it, and she stopped him and said, "I need to ask you something before you cut my roast. Did anybody pass away last night?" He said, "Well, as a matter of fact, Mr. Jones died last night." She said, "Well, let me go back and pay my last respects." We had a funeral home behind the meat market at the grocery store. Now, you talk about one-stop shopping. Now, listen, y'all got all these super Walmart, super Targets, you can get your clothes, you can get your medicine, you can get your furniture. Listen, we were doing that 100 years ago in Reynolds, Georgia. I mean, think about it. Walmart ain't got a funeral home in the back of it, right? Yet. They probably will before it's over with, but they don't yet, right? But it began to dawn on me now a long time ago that I've lived a pretty unique life. Now, think about it. Being in a town the size of Reynolds, Georgia, and eventually in some other little towns around, but originally in Reynolds, Georgia, and being in the business of burying people that you've known and loved all your life. I got to tell you, I know everybody in Reynolds, Georgia. I've been in everybody's house. I've been in everybody's refrigerator in Reynolds, Georgia. And been in the business of burying people that I've known and loved all my life. I believe I view life differently than most of y'all. Y'all deal with death when you're impacted by it. I'm going to tell you why I really started doing this. Death is tough stuff. I lost both of my parents within 5 months to the day of each other. I got a new understanding of what I've been doing all my life when I buried my parents, who I was very close to. But because of what I've done and what I continue to do until I retired, I made some observations about life. Now, you're going to hear them quick because I don't have much time here, but I'm going to give you some. The first observation I made, and you guys, y'all listen to this country undertaker, because I'm fixing to tell you the truth. The world ain't going to stop when you die. Y'all realize that? I know how y'all, some of you looked in the mirror this morning. You're getting dressed to go to work. You know, I'm important. You know, if something was to happen to me, my wife would be in a mess. Listen to me, I hate to tell y'all. She'll be fine. See it all the time. Y'all probably heard this story, but this friend of mine was in the monument business, and this lady that I had had the funeral, she went to him to order this big monument for the cemetery, and she told him the name and dates and told him exactly what she wanted, and he got all that ordered. A couple of weeks later, before it was done, she called back and said, "Jim, I've been thinking about this. Can I have something inscribed on the back of that monument?" Yes, besides the lettering on the front. "Yes, ma'am, you got a big monument. We charge by the letter. We put whatever you want." So how about putting these words, "The light of my life has gone out." He said he could certainly do that, so he called to have that added. A few weeks later, he installed it in the cemetery, called her and said, "It's in the cemetery." She went out to see it. She came a few days after that, she came back and said, "Jim, I love the monument, looks great. The name is perfect, spelled right, dates are right. I love the way you inscribed on the back. But is there any way I can have something to add what I've got inscribed on the back, the light of my life has gone out?" He said, "Absolutely. Like I said, you got a big monument. We charge by the letter. We put whatever you want." She said, "Well, how about adding these words? But I have found another match." The world ain't going to stop when you die. Y'all got that, right? Second observation I made about life, viewing it from my hearse. Now, you listen to this country undertaker because I'm just to tell you the truth. We need to lighten up. It is okay to laugh. Did y'all know that? Y'all know it's okay to laugh in church? Do y'all know it's okay to laugh right in the face of adversity? Do y'all know it's a fine line between laughing and crying? Do you know that the Bible says that a merry heart is like medicine? You ain't that important. It's okay. Lighten up. It's okay. Y'all ain't going to believe what happened. Early 1961, Daddy moved that funeral home from behind the meat market and built a new funeral home. Now, I was absolutely flabbergasted. I was a kid in 1951, but I was blown away. I thought all funeral homes was the back of a grocery store. You know, I didn't know any better. We had one black rotary dial phone on the desk at the funeral home. We had one black rotary dial phone in the hall of the house. Y'all remember we just had one phone? Some of you guys don't know what I'm talking about, I know. But you just had one phone. We had one number. I was trained as a kid, when that phone rang in the hall of our house, I had to rush to it, and I had to answer it, Goddard Funeral Home. That was at home. If I said hello, I would get slapped. I mean, we were in bondage to the telephone. I hate telephones right now. When I get on the phone, I say what I got to say, and I get off. I remember I'd be at home in the hall, sitting on that floor, talking on that black rotary dial telephone. Mom and Daddy walked by, slapped me on that. Bruce, get off the phone. Somebody may be dead. Lord have mercy. I can't get on the phone now. I'm thinking somebody may be dead somewhere. I don't need to be on this telephone. Lord have mercy. But I got to tell you this story. Everybody, if all the phones went off in here now with the cell phones and stuff, it'd be the fire department would be up here. But I was traveling north of Atlanta on 75. This has been a few years ago. Had to go to the restroom. It was about 9 o'clock in the morning. I've been on the road for about 3 hours. And I travel a lot, so I looked for nice restrooms. So I ran in this big QT place or whatever it is. And I'm in a hurry. I wasn't thinking. I went in the bathroom. I ripped the door open, and there was a man in that stall. And I am so sorry. You know, I didn't stay there long, but I apologize. So I got in the next stall. By the time I got in that stall, the man I just humiliated over there said, "How you doing?" I thought, you know, I don't know who that is, but I'm going to be nice because I'm embarrassed. "I'm doing fine." A few seconds went by. He said, "What time did you leave this morning?" I'm thinking, who am I talking to up here in this public restroom 3 hours from home? But I said, "I left about 6:30. That guy said, "Hey, let me call you back. Every time I ask you something, some idiot over here in the next stall is trying to answer." That man was on his telephone all that time. When I was 13 years old, my daddy decided it was time for me to go with him on a death call. And I want to tell you, 13 is young to do that. A death call, by the way, these people know about this, but that means somebody died and they called you to come get them. You don't know. So 13 had to be the summer because Daddy wouldn't have got me up in the middle of the night during school. But he made me put on a suit, and we went way out in one of the suburbs of Reynolds. Yeah, there ain't no suburb. Anyway, we were out in the country, and I've never seen so many cars. It was like 2 o'clock in the morning. Cars everywhere. This big wraparound front porch, people all on the porch. I was already nervous. I was asking Daddy, how big is this person? Because I was worried if I could pick up my side of the stretcher. I was a kid. He said, "Son, you're fine. Just come on. You're fine." So we get out there. And by the way, I saw all the people, and I thought, this must be the mayor or somebody. This is somebody important now. I really was nervous. Daddy said, "You stay here. I'm going to go talk to this family." So I'm standing out there by the hearse, 13 years old, have my coat and tie on. Daddy, in a few minutes, comes back. He said, by the way, I learned something that night. I think I know how it is in Jackson, Tennessee. I can ask these guys, but I think I know. But where I come from, there's something about death that makes people think of tater salad. I'm serious about it. Listen. You can be in the hospital, the doctor can come out of the operating room, pull the mask off his face, gather the family together, say, "I'm sorry, Grandpa didn't make it. My Lord, let me go home and make some tater salad." That's the first thing everybody does. Well, I was relieved that night with thinking, well, maybe this man ain't that important. Everybody just bringing tater salad to the house. Made me feel better. So Daddy, I helped him get the stretcher up that flight of steps. I remember there were several doors that went in that house off that wraparound porch, screen doors. We got to one of the doors, said, "Son, the man's in that room. You roll the stretcher on in there. I'm going to go talk to this family. I'll be back in a minute." 13 years old. I knew how the stretcher adjusted. I rolled it up next to the bed, and the man's laying there. And I'm thinking, "Daddy, whatever you're doing, please hurry up." And I'm in there by myself with this man, and I looked down, and I thought I saw the man move. And I'm going to tell you something, I backed up. I'm thinking, surely this man's dead. They wouldn't have the undertaker out here at 2 o'clock in the morning with all this tater salad. You know? Man, so I got myself together. I eased back up to the bed, and I'm thinking I'm hallucinating. I'm too young to be doing this. And by the time I looked down, the man reached up and scratched his nose. True story. I'll tell you something. I was about 13 years old. But you ain't got to be a rocket scientist to figure out. They out there picking up pallbearers. This man here scratched his nose. We got problems, you know. So Daddy came in. I said, "Daddy, I need to talk to you." He said, "Son, they're ready for us to move him to the funeral home." I said, "Daddy, I believe I need to talk to you before we move him to the funeral home." He said, "Son, what's your..." I said, "Daddy, the man ain't dead." And Daddy looked across the room. The man that was dead was in a chair on the other side of the room. I was over there with his invalid father who was laying in the bed. Now, there's a moral to that story. When y'all call George A. Smith to come to your house, be doggone sure they leave with the right fella. I'm just telling you. You check good before they get out of there, because it can happen. It would have happened. It's no wonder I stayed in this business. My granddaddy, that Nancy remembers, we called him Big Daddy. Gosh, I got to hurry. Anyway, I'll tell you. He was 97 years old. He was still helping on funerals. And I was running the funeral home, and I'd give him a job. He had a cane. He was bent over, but everybody knew him. And this was a graveside service, and the family wanted us to open the casket at the graveside. So just so you know, undertakers don't like that. We want to open it at the funeral home at the graveside. You can't control the light. It ain't what we want to do, but we do whatever the family wants. But this cemetery was very sandy, and it would cave in. People would be in the bottom of that grave if you didn't care for. So Big Daddy's job that day, I said, you stand right here. They're going to come walk by and view, and don't let anybody get close to this casket because they could fall in the grave. He was all over it. Everybody knew, gentlemen, you're too close. Madam, back up. Gentlemen, I mean, he was a pro, and he was all over it. And everybody was kind of smiling, and I was letting him go for it because everybody knew it. Finally, we got through it all that. We started a funeral. Big Daddy was 97 years old with his cane bent over. And I look up, the preacher's about to start, and I just watched Big Daddy slowly go in that grave. I mean, he disappeared in that grave. Now, I know somebody was paying me to bury their loved one, but I had to get my granddaddy out of the grave. I didn't know what else to do. So the family helped, everybody helped, and the funeral director, everybody, we about pulled his arm off, getting him out. He can imagine saying all of them. We're all going in the grave. I had a video of that. What's that TikTok thing? It would go good on TikTok, I can tell you that. But we finally got him out. He wiped his pants off. He stood there. Everything in the grave looks fine. That's a fast thinking undertaker right there. The world ain't going to stop when you die. We need to lighten up. Let me tell you something else I observed about life for my hearse. So you listen to this country undertaker, because I'm just to tell you the truth. In this world, you're going to have trouble. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you live in Jackson, Tennessee, or Reynolds, Georgia. I don't care if you're 106 or 13. I don't care the color of your skin or what you believe and don't believe. Things ain't going to always go your way. Now, I've observed that viewing life from my hearse. I've also read that in the Bible, by the way. Jesus himself said it. In this world, you will have trouble. He didn't say you might. He said you would. Now, I've noticed things about people going through trouble. And I say people find themselves in the ditch. Everybody is going to find themselves in the ditch. You're either in the ditch or you're trying to get out of it or you're about to go in one, is what I've noticed. Have y'all noticed that? And I've realized that if we find ourselves in the ditch for maybe three reasons. One is we do stupid stuff. I mean, you go take a fork and plug it in that outlet, you're going to be in the ditch of electrocution. That's kind of stupid. Don't do that. Or you go play in the highway, you get run over. Sometimes you find yourself in the ditch because somebody in your life did something stupid and you get sucked in with them. Y'all ever been there? Now, I can see some people nodding. You know what I'm talking about. And sometimes you're in the ditch and just things don't go right. And somebody gets sick. Somebody dies. Nobody's done it wrong. You just find yourself in the ditch. The question is not if you find yourself in the ditch. You're going to find yourself in the ditch. The question is, do you make the right ditch choices? That's the deal. And as you learn, as I've learned in life, when you find yourself in the ditch, people tend to like being in the ditch. You like to mother grub and complain and bitch and blame everybody else for your plight in life. Gather your papers back up, get them in the paper, and get on down there. I wrote a book called The Legacy of Eulon Brown, which is about ditch living. And he had muscular disease. He was always in the ditch. He delivered grit papers on his bicycle. Y'all remember grit papers? Some of you do. He was always gathering his papers back up. He didn't know what the word quit was. He taught me a valuable lesson about life. 5 people were at his funeral beside my staff. Eulon Brown is famous. I've talked about him all over this country. He didn't think his life counted for much, but he had a major impact on mine. And you will have a major impact on people in your life when you decide to get out of the daggum ditch and keep moving. You got to keep moving forward. Don't wallow in the ditch. We get comfortable in the ditch. Last observation I made about life, viewing it from my hearse. Now, you listen to this country undertaker, because I'm just to tell you the truth, boy, I'm doing this on speed dial. I'm talking fast. The only investments you make in this life that will be here after you're dead and gone and some crazy group like this buries you or cremates you are the investments you make in people. Can I tell you, there ain't no U-Hauls hooked up to these hearses. You can't take a dime with you. It's important. I hope you make all the money. I hope you got people hired to manage your money. It's very, very important. All that's important. But I want to tell you this. As an undertaker, if your chief focus in life is to see how much money you can make or to see how many things you can accumulate, you will get to the end of your life and you'll realize that you missed the boat. Folks, I got to tell you, I've walked away from a lot of cemeteries. Jerry, there's no telling how many cemeteries you walked by. I've never heard a family get back in that family car, that limo, and look back at that cemetery and say, boy, I wish Daddy would have spent more time at the office. You don't hear that. You know what you hear? You know what you hear in that car? You know what you hear? I wish I had 5 more minutes with Daddy. I wish I had 5 more minutes with Mama. I got to tell you, I had wonderful parents. I had one thing to do with that. God did that, and he lavished his grace on me. I remember playing high school basketball, and I got pretty good. I don't care where we were playing, my mama would be following that bus, and we walked in that gym. I don't ever remember her missing a basketball game. I'm sure she did, but I forgot it. What was more amazing than that is sometimes I would look up, and I'd see Daddy walk in. A lot of times he on a suit. I knew he was busy, and back then I was thinking, Daddy must love basketball. But I got a little older, got married, started having kids of my own. I realized it wasn't basketball he was so interested in. What he's interested in was those people that God had entrusted to him. And he spent his life, investing his life in those people. When my mama was dying at the medical center in Macon, I got 3 siblings, our loved ones, your brother was there. We would gather around that bed watching Mama. We knew every breath would be a last. We knew where she was going. We weren't worried about that. We were just praying that every breath would be a last at that point. But all of a sudden, she kind of woke up, as sometimes people do, and she called my name. I'm the youngest of 4 kids. And I'm a big old boy. I was getting people out of the way because I want to hear what Mama's trying to say. And I had to get my ear right over her dry, parched lips to hear. But you're not going to believe what she told me. Last thing Mama ever told me on the face of this earth. She said the Braves won last night. Oh, Lord, have mercy. The Braves won last night. Mama, who gives a real... I ain't going to tell you no. I did ask her what the score was. But I got to thinking about that several years later. I went to the University of Georgia. Mama became the biggest Georgia Bulldog fan you've ever met in your life. I told you about the basketball. She in 1969, when the Braves won the Western Division for the first time, Mama got in her car at midnight and drove up and down the streets of Reynolds honking the horn. She was a Braves fan. And, I always thought, Mama, I don't know if the Braves won last night, but you won. And she did. And I want to tell you, the investments, can I tell you, daddies and granddaddies, something? There's not a more important thing you can do. There's not a more biblical thing you can do than to go outside and throw that ball with that little boy, or go to that little league game with that few mamas and grandmamas that take the daughter shopping or whatever in the world you do to make a lemon pie, whatever. These people are not going to remember what you said. I work with my daddy every day of my life. I remember some of what he said. But what I mainly remember is what he did. And he spent his life investing his life in his kids. And I'm standing here today because of the investment they made. Listen, man, this life is short. Jerry, I had dinner with Jerry last night. We were talking about it. He's supposed to be 89 years old next month. It went by just like that, didn't it? And it goes by fast. Gloria Gaither wrote a song. David, I promise you I'm not going to sing it, but I'm going to tell you what she said. She said, hold tight to the sound of the music of living, happy songs from the laughter of children at play. Hold my hand as we run through the sweet, fragrant meadows, making memories of what was today. Tiny voice that I hear is my little boy calling for Daddy to hear just what he has to say. Or your little girl running there by the hillside. May never be quite like today. Tender words, gentle touch, and a good cup of coffee. And someone who loves me and wants me to stay. Hold them near while they're here. And don't wish for tomorrow, to look back and wish for the day. Take the blue of the sky and the green of the forest and the gold and the brown of freshly mown hay. Add the pale shades of spring and the circus of autumn and weave you a lovely today. We have this moment to hold in our hands and to touch as it slips through our fingers like sand. Yesterday's gone. Tomorrow may never come. But we have this moment today. Because we have this moment, I'm going to do something that's going to surprise my friend Jerry Smith. But Jerry, come up here just 1 minute, if you would. Can you hand me that right? So, Jerry has no idea I'm going to do this, but I want you to just stand here just a minute and listen to me just a minute. y'all know him, and most of you known him all his life. There was a time just in my area, I was running about 300 funeral homes and cemeteries. This man is a prince among funeral directors. He is the best of the best. We hit it off very tight. He was called by God to do. You're talking about somebody who's invested his life in this community. This community has his fingerprints all over it, from neighborhoods to what he's done. Many of you have had him serve your family. It's a good thing when something's bad happened through the years and you see this man walk in the room, because he knew what he was doing and he was good at it. And although he's not that much older than me, he reminded me of my daddy, who I thought hung the moon. So Jerry, I'm not talking about living in the moment. I'm not going to let this opportunity pass. I'm retired, and Selena's here with the company, and the local people are here, but I want to make sure I didn't waste this opportunity. So Jerry, I got something I'm going to present to you, and I'm just going to read it. It says, this is a Lifetime Achievement Award, October 2023, presented to Jerry Smith, George A. Smith Funeral Home, Jackson, Tennessee. We are grateful for the professionalism and leadership you have brought to our organization and your community, as well as the significant contributions you've made to our success. Thank you for a lifetime of exceptional work. That's from Service Corporation International. You see the Dignity brand, the 2,000 funeral homes and cemeteries across the United States and Canada and Puerto Rico. This is the Lifetime Achievement Award. And if you would you stand up and give this man an applause? Love you, brother.
Oh.
Let me touch that.
Thank you so much. This means so much to me. Thank you so much. I appreciate what my father taught me through the years, and that's where it's come from.
God bless you. Love you, man. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Everybody got it. Thank you.
We certainly enjoyed that. Thank you so much. Do we have any questions from the audience? If you would like to offer any questions at this time.
What's the most embarrassing funeral you've ever had?
Here you go, Bruce.
I love these questions now. We can get going here. He asked what was the most embarrassing funeral I've ever had. I guess we had a funeral, man from out of town, and they asked a Methodist preacher. The man's name was Mr. White, and the preacher sat down with him, got all the information, came out to his graveside service, big crowd, and he started calling him Mr. Smith and the Smith family. And I looked around, there wasn't a Smith in the audience, and I had to, right in the middle of the service, tap him on the back shoulder and say, I scared him to death, tapped him while he was talking. I said, his name is White. And I don't know how many seconds went by before he said another word, but we about had to give their money back after that one, I can tell you that. Thank you.